boy eats insects to become stronger. After being reborn 300 years into the future, the earth was covered in mana, but Dong had a body cursed by mana, unable to awaken his talent because the mana in his body was poison. But before being reborn, he was the demon of poison now. He has become a genius in this world. While everyone uses mana to fight, he turns mana into death. Beginning in the year 2326, our story takes us to the territory of the Samhan Empire. Screaming for him to stop, they warn that if they lose him, they'll all be dead. Running through the forest, a man wonders what he could have done. Almost out of breath, he questions why they're trying so hard to get rid of him. Just then, a voice shouts his name, Kim Taeju, ordering him to stop immediately. Right after, a powerful explosion erupts on the path right in front of him. Clutching his chest, he complains that his heart is acting up again. Completely drained of strength, he falls to his knees on the forest floor. At that moment, the lieutenant asks if he ran away just to have another attack on the way. Then, First Lieutenant Jang In-dong reveals himself, with his platoon right behind him. Trapped at the edge of a cliff, he faces the group approaching him. Desperate, he screams, asking why they're doing this to him. With a smirk, the lieutenant says a reject like him should have died long ago. He then draws his sword and asks why he kept provoking her. Confused, Taeju asks if he's referring to Honda Mitsui. Warning him to be careful, he says that stepmother or not, she is his mother. Without hesitation, he lunges forward, swinging the sword at him. Paralyzed, Taeju can only watch as the blade rapidly approaches his body. With a cold gaze, the lieutenant simply orders him to die right there. In one swift motion, the blade pierces through his chest without any mercy. The force of the impact throws him backward, sending him plummeting off the cliff. Watching him fall, the lieutenant comments that the Paju domain will be inherited by the sons. As the body plummets, he bids him a simple farewell. Going back 300 years, the scene shifts to the city in 2026. On that day, the sky was completely darkened by a total eclipse. That was when mana finally descended upon the earth for the first time. As a result, 90% of all humanity was wiped out. After that, with cities in ruins, civilization collapsed. But those who survived adapted and rebuilt civilization from scratch. Then, beasts and toxic plants emerged, starting a new war. As the war dragged on, a class system based on mana eventually emerged. Revealing his lineage, he explains that his father is Master Kim Ung-bang. Despite being the firstborn, he was a reject who lived poisoned by mana. Floating in the void, he says he tried to be immortal, but this is not the immortal realm. Seeing the strange structures, he wonders where he could be now. Then he turns to the figure and asks if it knows what's happening. With a hole in his chest, he floats aimlessly in that unknown space. Suddenly he realizes that somehow he didn't die. At that moment, a mysterious figure simply appears, floating right in front of him. Ordering him to rise, the figure commands him to show his face immediately. The two then face each other, with the figure observing him curiously. He then discovers that this is the absolute poison demon, Dang Gunak. As the head of the Tang clan, he was a master of poison and weapons. In his time, demonic cults were swallowing the entire martial arts world. But in the end, he managed to defeat the cult's leader, the great heavenly demon. Using just a handful of poisoned water, he became the master of the Murim. Just then, he discovers that this was the one who shared the same soul as him. In his final years, he trained to transcend mortality and finally ascend. In that process, his soul ended up connecting with the soul of young Taeju. The moment they became aware of each other, his memories flooded the boy's mind. Confused, Taeju asks if Dangunak is, in fact, him. Seeing the memories, Dangunak asks if that was the young man's life. He recognizes Kim Taeju, the person who shares the same soul as him, saying he has the same potential. He comments on how Taeju was despised by everyone. After seeing everything, he finally says that he now understands the whole situation. Explaining the location, he reveals that this is the inner world of their soul. He then states that they are one and the same, as they are the same person. Speaking of the future, he says he will leave behind his experience and knowledge. He continues saying that if the young man trains from now on, the promise is that he will become the supreme master of that world as well. He then says that he can use this power to live as he pleases. Back in reality, his body is still lying on the forest floor. Before leaving, the voice wishes young Kim Taeju good luck. Waking up suddenly, he screams Dangunak's name, completely shocked. Realizing it wasn't a dream, He remembers all the knowledge he received. Trying to push himself up from the ground, he begins to struggle to his feet. With great difficulty, he says he needs to find a way to survive now. He understands that he must master the art that makes him stronger with poison. Luckily for him, he finds several poisonous herbs scattered on the ground. He then starts eating the plants, but his body reacts with intense pain. Forcing himself to continue, he says he must eat this to survive. His plan is to convert the poison and create a core of venomous energy. With this bodily reconstruction, he understands he can escape his fate. Vowing to survive, he warns that he'll make them all pay tenfold. Under the moonlight, a soldier yells that they need to confirm the body. Searching for the body, the group scours the forest, using flashlights to light the way. Annoyed by the delay, the lieutenant questions them, and a soldier announces he's found him. Finally finding him, they're shocked and question why he's still alive. Noticing the change, a soldier asks if his vibe doesn't seem strange. Sitting in the lotus position, he was actually using his new poison core. Yelling at his men, the leader orders them to finish him off before things get complicated. Then, one of the soldiers rushes forward, sword in hand, ready to strike. With his eyes closed, Taeju remains completely still as the soldier approaches. He then opens his eyes, facing the attack coming his way. With a swift movement, he manages to stop the blade with just his hand. Seeing this, the other soldiers are paralyzed, unable to believe what just happened. Looking at his hand, he wonders if this is inner energy. Clenching his fist, he realizes that with this newfound power, everything has changed. Slowly rising, he warns that he can now finally pay them all back. With a smile, he says it's a great pleasure to see them again. The lieutenant then asks about his calm demeanor and if he is finally awakened. Repeating the word awakened, he stares at the lieutenant with a very ironic smile. It is revealed that the awakened are divided into ranks, from master to user. It's shown that Jang In-dong is just a beginner, the equivalent of a weak warrior. He then asks if the soldier is done with his last words. Unfazed, he takes out a few coins he had in his pocket. Getting into position, he warns that he will return everything they did to him. Mocking the situation, a soldier asks if he hit his head when he fell. Yelling that he'll make sure he's dead, the lieutenant orders everyone to attack him together. Clenching his fist, he calmly prepares for the coming fight. The figure of Dang Gunak then appears, revealing the source of his calm. Even though he's rejected by Mana, he knows the demon's path is with him. With a determined look, he gets ready to show everyone his new power. Using his new technique, he hurls the coins at high speed in their direction. As they charge forward together, the soldiers are immediately surrounded by the young man's poison technique. Two of them are thrown far away, with no chance to react to the attack. With the soldiers down, Taeju continues his attack on the rest of the group. Focusing his poisonous energy in his hand, he prepares for his next move. Then he fires a blast straight into the chest of the lieutenant leading the platoon. Moving forward, the poison attack easily pierces the enemy's defense. Seeing this, one of the soldiers desperately yells for his platoon leader. Then, another soldier draws a mana weapon, yelling for him to die. He then fires, but the shot is completely stopped by the poison energy. Without even moving, Taeju blocks the attack with complete ease. With a cold look, he simply says the attack was too slow. Lying on the ground, the lieutenant asks what he did to him. He then explains that even an awakened one stands no chance against poison. Confused, the lieutenant says he doesn't have a tattoo and asks how he can use a skill. Asking how he feels, Taeju now stares him down, the roles reversed. With an intense gaze, he asks if the feeling is just awful. Desperate, the lieutenant begs Lieutenant Kim to let him live. Showing no mercy, he grabs the man's neck with great force. Feeling the grip tighten, the lieutenant lets out a pained scream, unable to breathe. Then he lifts him off the ground, holding him with just one hand. Almost out of breath, he asks if Taeju knows who's behind him. Struggling to speak, he warns that Lady Mitsui will get revenge for this. With an emotionless gaze, he just watches the man struggle in his grasp. After finishing them all off, he stands amidst the fallen bodies. Then, a small, satisfied smile appears on his face for a moment. Telling them not to worry, he warns that he will no longer take things lying down. The scene changes, and the story explains the formation of the Samhan Empire. As Taeju's hometown, Paju is a small and arid domain. Elsewhere, a man questions if Taeju was really discharged from the army. His subordinate explains that Lieutenant Jang's unit ambushed him during a mission. After that, Lieutenant Kim survived and disappeared after receiving his discharge. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Jang and his men were attacked and killed by monsters. Questioning why they would do this, he finds out about the officers affiliated with the Japanese. This leads him to suspect a specific person because of the affiliation. Bringing his hands to his face, he realizes the culprit can only be Honda Mitsui. As the daughter of a Japanese family, she was absorbed into the Samhan Empire. Furthermore, she was the mother of Taeju's half-brothers, Taepyeong and Taecheon. To pass Paju on to her sons, She had always hoped for the rejecter to die. He then wonders if she lost her patience and asked her father-in-law for help. Complaining about her impatience, he says that Paju needs the support of her wealthy family. He then decides he has no choice but to bury the matter. Telling him he'll take care of everything, he dismisses the subordinate from his office. After the soldier leaves, the office door closes behind him. Alone, he remembers that Taiju is a rejecter who would have died anyway. Even knowing she crossed the line, he decides to let it go for the sake of his sons. He then says he won't look for him, telling him to live his life freely. Arriving at the monster zone, he looks out at the great city of Jirisan. With a sigh, he remarks that you can see the whole city from there. Just then, a man asks if this is his first time seeing Gurye. Seeing his reaction, the man says he must not know the place very well. He begins to explain that Gurye used to be just a small Korean town. Due to the high concentration of monsters, the emperor declared Gurye a free city. To attract people, the empire offered tax exemptions and other benefits. After the restrictions were lifted, monster hunting thrived. Finishing his explanation, he says the city became a land of opportunity. He also warns that, because of this, there are many dangerous criminals in the area. Telling them to keep moving, he says to ask if they have any more questions. Going back in time, a flashback begins to explain the recent events. After surviving the ambush, he needed a new place to go. That's how he found the free city of Gurai to start over. Knowing the imperial authority is weak there, he knows his family won't find him. With monsters and poisonous herbs nearby, the location is ideal for his training. Remembering the past, he recalls receiving the soul sharing just before he died. He then remembers Dangunak, the poison demon of the Murim world. Along with the soul, he also received the Musang poison spirit art. Ironically, Honda Mitsui, the one who tried to kill him, ended up doing him a huge favor. Without strength or money, he works as a porter to make his way in Jirisan. His new boss then asks who he thinks is the strongest in the group. Pointing to the swordswoman, he says she's Lee Hanul, a regular rank. Understanding the hierarchy, he realizes the regular rank is above Yang In-dong's, but he notices the woman's mana flow seems very strange. Suddenly, her eyes roll back and she faints, collapsing on the trail. Everyone is startled to see a 3-striped variant mosquito near them. Warning them not to get stung, they prepare for the giant insect's attack. With a serious look, he just stares at the mosquito as it approaches the group. Shouting for them to get back, the mage says she'll handle the monster herself. Readying her staff, the group's mage concentrates to cast a spell. Then she shoots a huge fireball toward the flying monster. The spell explodes with a powerful impact, hitting the target head-on in the forest. Asking why everyone is panicking, he hears that its sting drains mana. The boss explains that entire parties have been wiped out by a single mosquito. Recalling his memories, he realizes the description matches a known poison. Taking the chance, he approaches to test his new poison art on her. Checking on the woman, he asks if she's okay but notices something different. In despair, the boss yells that this isn't even supposed to be a mosquito zone. Without proper gear, and with their pro unconscious, they decide it's best to retreat. Suddenly, a noise from the bushes gets everyone's attention. At the sound, one of the group members goes on high alert. Shouting to everyone, he tells the group to prepare for another battle. But from the bushes, only a sack rabbit calmly appears before them. Relieved, they wonder if it was just a rabbit after all that fuss. Laughing at the situation, the boss tells everyone to relax and get ready to fall back. But suddenly, he's hit by something, screaming in pain. The mage spins around, startled, trying to understand what just happened. A huge creature emerges from the shadows, forcing her to defend herself quickly. To everyone's horror, a group of orcs appears, axes in hand. Without wasting a second, the orc horde charges the group. Telling them to grab the injured, the mage shouts that she'll buy them time to escape. Seeing him just standing there, the boss yells his name, telling him to get out of there. He replies that he's staying, telling them to go on without him. The boss says this isn't their fight, but he insists he has to help. Handing over the injured woman, he asks the boss to take care of her while he fights. Insisting they run, he says he'll provide support from a distance. Agreeing to retreat, the boss tells him not to die there no matter what. Watching the fight, he notices the orcs' movements are highly coordinated. With a spear of fire, one of the orcs hits the mage head-on, sending her flying. Shouting for them to be careful, she warns that an orc is heading for the porters. Asking where he thinks he's going, she runs to intercept him. With her magic, she creates a huge wall of fire to block the path. Near the flames, he shields himself from the smoke by covering his face. Sensing the danger, he desperately shouts for everyone to get down immediately. With a surprised look, the mage is put on alert by the sudden warning. Just then, an orc appears behind her, and she questions what's happening. The scene changes. taking us to the beautiful and peaceful immortal realm. Amidst floating islands, the place looks like a true celestial paradise. Looking around, he remarks that it's been a month since he arrived. He then reflects that he gained Earth's knowledge through the sharing of souls. With this knowledge, he realized he had reached a new level of inner enlightenment. Then his body dissolves and he finally achieves his long-dreamed-of transcendence. But clenching his fist, he says that deep down, he should have known the truth. Angrily, he screams that the immortal realm is a prison full of lunatics. Laughing hysterically, another immortal reveals that everyone there lost their minds long ago. Challenged, he just tells the crazy sword immortal to stay put. Watching them all fight, he laments wasting his years to end up in this place. Remembering the connection, he says he at least has to look on the bright side. Now calmer, he wonders how young Taiju is doing. He hopes that, even if despised by everyone, he finds happiness with his power. To surpass the masters, he warns that Taiju needs to grow and evolve quickly. Saying that fate might bring them together, he searches for something in this immortal prison. He's looking for new things to pass on to young Taiju in the future. Just then, a man asks how it feels to taste the flying sword technique. Annoyed, he swears he'll finish off that crazy swordsman who provoked him. Back in the forest, the mage raises a wall of fire against the orcs. Without her noticing, one of the orcs manages to appear right behind her. Seeing the situation, Taiju clicks his tongue and prepares to intervene. He then launches a projectile of poisonous energy at the ground to create a distraction. Taking the opportunity, he lands a swift blow to the mage's neck. With a hard stomp on the ground, he gets ready to use a new technique. He announces he's about to show them his secret area of effect weapon technique. Then he throws several coins that spin and slice through the air at high speed. His attack hits the orcs head on, taking them all down at once. After hitting their targets, the coins fly back towards him. Landing perfectly, he collects all the coins that fall to the ground. Seeing them all down, he's satisfied to have cleaned everything up in one go. He then worries about the woman, as he knocked her out in his haste. Moving away from the bodies, he knows he needs to get out of there to avoid arousing suspicion. Before anyone else shows up, he decides he needs to disappear from the area. With a smile, he reflects that just a month ago, he was a mana reject. Deciding to clean up the mess, he takes out his pouch to store the coins. He complains that it's a pain to destroy evidence when using hidden weapons. As he's putting the coins away, he notices one is missing from the count. Searching the area, he wonders where the last coin could have fallen. Just then, he spots the missing coin stuck in a nearby mosquito's web. With a serious look, he gets ready to take the coin back. Firing a blast of energy, he hits the web and frees the coin. Holding the mosquito, he recalls that this type of mosquito isn't supposed to be here. He then wonders if this is the same mosquito that bit the woman. Just then, he watches the mosquito bite his hand, injecting venom into his body. As he's bitten, he feels his inner energy start to disperse. He then remembers that the venom is very similar to one from the Murim world. Unlike that one, this venom has no known cure and is extremely dangerous. With Dang Gunak's knowledge, he knows he can create an antidote. With no other choice, he decides he'll eat the insect to find out. Bringing the mosquito to his mouth, he prepares to eat it and analyze the venom. After swallowing it, he starts to feel the venom's effects on his body. Luckily for him, he realizes he can make an antidote with the local herbs. Planning his next steps, he says he needs to run some tests when he gets back. Suddenly, he senses something strange and stops for a moment to observe. With wide eyes, he notices a presence suddenly appearing before him. Without warning, an elite orc appears out of nowhere right in front of him. Facing the monster, he finds himself up against a threat he never expected to encounter. With an axe in hand, the orc declares he will end the human right there. He then recognizes the monster as an elite, the equivalent of an awakened one. Wondering what's happening, he doesn't understand the presence of so many monsters. Screaming for the human to die, the elite orc charges to attack. With a swift move, he unleashes a powerful blow with his enormous axe. The weapon strikes the ground with force, carving a huge trench in the earth. Seeing the attack's power, he realizes the orc is much stronger. Grabbing his coins, he decides to test his techniques to see if he stands a chance. He hurls the coins with force towards the orc. His attack hits the monster head on, striking several parts of its body. But the coins simply ricochet off the orc's body, causing no damage whatsoever. The impact doesn't even leave a scratch, with the orc not even flinching. Seeing the result, he confirms that his most powerful attacks are useless. His strongest technique is useless, and weaker ones would be even worse. He then wonders if the poison from his venomous palm will work. Roaring with fury, the elite orc prepares to continue its attack. Angry with himself, he wonders what he's doing just standing in front of the enemy. Thinking of his master, He imagines Dang Gunok would be disgusted by his hesitation. He then realizes he became too cocky after defeating the weaker orcs. Setting his stance, he understands he must keep attacking until the enemy falls. This is the true path of the absolute poison demon he inherited. Seeing the hesitation, the orc raises its axe for a devastating blow. Without retreating, he advances and manages to block the orc's attack with his technique. The collision of the two attacks causes a massive impact throughout the forest. After the dust settles, the orc's axe lies on the ground, ownerless. Fallen on the ground, he faces the orc still standing before him. Seeing it cause no damage, he realizes there's only one thing left to do. With a determined look, he decides to attack again, as many times as it takes. Using a new technique, he creates several cutting threads with his poison energy. Then, the orc's body is struck by countless cuts coming from all sides. Completely shocked, he wonders what just happened in front of him. Then a man wonders how he managed to defeat an elite so easily. Seeing the man standing there, he realizes he must be someone of master rank. As the orc disintegrates, the man calls him over to talk. With the orcs down, he approaches and asks if he was the one responsible. He questions how someone without a tattoo could massacre an entire band of orcs. Not knowing what to say, Taeju stares at the man in silence for a moment. Introducing himself as Lee Jung-hak, he demands to know who Taeju is exactly. Sensing the authority, he decides to thank him for the save, first and foremost. At that moment, the chief of the porters group arrives, asking if he's okay. The chief says he was referring to the cargo, but Taeju assures him everything is fine. Confused, the chief stares at the man who suddenly appeared in the middle of the forest. Recognizing the master, he orders his men to call the cleanup crew immediately. The chief then explains that Gurye is a free city, governed by a committee. He continues saying that Lee is the head of the Nogadang Guild and an awakened master. The chief goes on to explain that for security, the porters pay a fee to the guild. Telling Taeju to thank him, the chief apologizes and Taeju introduces himself to the master. Lee asks if he's a porter, questioning if he wasn't the one who killed the orcs. Taeju lies, saying the mage defeated the orcs and fainted from exhaustion. At that moment, the guild members report that the survivors have been found. Agreeing to leave, the master prepares to depart with his group. When he turns, everyone follows him out of the forest in silence. Before leaving, Lee turns and warns Taeju not to cause any trouble in the city. He then threatens him, saying that next time, he won't send him home in one piece. After the group leaves, the chief warns him not to cross his path. Taeju replies that he just seems like a corrupt security chief. The chief reveals he only runs patrols to maintain his good reputation. Saying that a master is a disaster, he tells them to get the cargo so they can leave. Taeju then reflects that if it weren't for Lee, things could have gotten worse. Questioning himself, he realizes he had become arrogant and forgotten his goals. Ashamed, he apologizes to Dang Gun-ak and promises that everything will change. With a determined gaze, he vows to get stronger, no matter the cost. The story begins in the free city of Gurye, a place with a solid but unfinished infrastructure. It's a dangerous city, so there are hardly any hospitals due to the risks. Since the few doctors are fugitives, the local residents don't trust them at all. To fill this gap, pharmacies have spread all over the city. As a result, Gurye's pharmacists are authorized to write important prescriptions. With this, business thrives since everyone prefers medicine to shady hospitals. That's precisely why he came here, to sell an antidote. For the past month, he's worked, gathered ingredients, and trained his martial arts at night. Thanks to all his effort, he finally achieved the 3rd star of his art. If he can close this deal, he hopes money will no longer be an issue. As he arrives at the pharmacy, a bell on the door chimes announcing his entry. Stepping into Bayak Pharmacy, he sees a few other customers inside. Ignoring the attendant's question, he just asks if the owner is around. Completely surprised, the woman is at a loss for words. He then informs her that he's not there to buy, but to sell something. The attendant laughs at the situation just as a customer is leaving. Then an older man emerges from the back, watching the young man carefully. Introducing himself as Baek Hong Pyo, he says he's the owner and they can talk. Taeju then says he came there to sell a medicine he made himself. The owner sighs, complaining about yet another peddler for the day. Saying he's not interested, he tells the young man to leave and find a job. He then takes out a vial and reveals it's a mosquito antidote. Even as he says he won't buy it, the owner stops short at the word antidote. Turning to the young man, he asks what kind of antidote it is. Taeju explains that it's for the venom of the 3-striped variant mosquito. The owner just stares at the young man in silence, suspicious of what he just heard. He places the vial on the counter, explaining it's taken orally as a preventative. He adds that its effect lasts for a full 10 hours. Visibly annoyed, the pharmacy owner scowls. Shouting at him, the owner says that if he's going to pull a scam, he should at least make it a believable one. Unfazed, he places 2 more bottles of the antidote on the pharmacy counter. He then tells them to test it, and to call him if they're interested. Leaving a card with his name, he warns them they have until midnight. As he leaves, he warns that if they don't call, he'll take it to another pharmacy. After he leaves, everyone in the pharmacy is silent for a moment. The owner wonders what that was, asking if the kid had lost his mind. The man in armor then picks up the vial and asks if it's really an antidote. Park Jin-soo, the raid team leader, asks if the owner believes him. Not knowing what to say, the owner just stares at the man in front of him. With the vial in his hand, the owner says it's hard to tell if it's real. Handing over the vial, he says, testing it will give them their answer. Although skeptical, he remembers the young man's confidence and feels a spark of intrigue. As the attendant tells them to forget it, the owner notices something odd. Without hesitation, Park Jin-soo drinks the contents of the vial in one go. After drinking it all, he just stands still, waiting for the antidote's effect. After tasting it, he says it was just plain, tasteless water. Shocked by the answer, the owner asks if it was really just plain water. The owner then asks if he, a man who takes so much medicine, felt nothing at all. He confirms that he's taken a lot of medicine and that it was just water. Tossing the vial in the trash, he says he was just some random scammer. The owner then wonders if the young man was just another one of the daily scammers. With a basket full of medicine, the man asks the attendant to ring him up. Saying he's going frog hunting, he complains about the time wasted on the scammer. Paying the bill, he complains that the prices have gone up again, as always. Saying goodbye to the owner, he leaves the pharmacy to begin his hunt. Looking at the trash can, the owner mutters that there was no way it was a real antidote. The scene shifts to a dark forest, where two explosions suddenly go off. A wolf-like monster charges forward to attack the man in armor. Without hesitation, he uses a shield reinforcement skill to protect himself. Screaming in terror, he wonders why a blade-toothed marten has appeared. With a battle cry, a female warrior raises her sword to attack the monster. She shouts that the rear is clear, telling them to retreat now. Suddenly, she feels the mosquito's venom and warns that she's becoming paralyzed. The leader replies that he understands, asking her to hold on a little longer. Then he notices something strange and stops his attack mid-swing. Startled, he wonders if there's a flying variant mosquito nearby. With a mosquito on his face, he fears the venom will build up in his body. Seeing his fallen comrades, he knows that if he goes down, the whole team is done for. He realizes his shield is weakening and wonders if he's been poisoned. Thinking back, he realizes a marten appeared out of nowhere during the frog hunt. The insect-proof gear was destroyed in seconds by the monster's attack. In the panic and confusion, he was hit by the monster. After that, those who were bitten tried to retreat from the battle quickly, but the martens appeared and cut off their escape route. With no choice, they had to fight for their lives against the monsters. At his companion's warning, he turns around and is shocked by the scene. The marten lunges with its claws, ready to tear the team leader to shreds. His shield shatters, but he manages to block the monster's attack at the last second. Even with his defense broken, he avoids the creature's fatal blow. Surprised, he realizes his strength and mana are still intact, not weakening at all. With a suspicious look, he starts to suspect something about what happened earlier. He then remembers the antidote he took, wondering if it was real. Telling himself to pull it together, he readies himself to get back into the fight. Gripping his sword, he focuses on facing the marten head-on. Knowing the antidote is real, he charges forward with his sword. With a determined look, he understands that now they have a fighting chance. Back at the pharmacy, night has already fallen over the city of Guri. Suddenly, the door bursts open and the bell rings frantically. The owner says they're closed, but then recognizes Park entering the shop. Desperate, he asks the price of the antidote from that morning, wanting to buy all of it. Over at the Guri market, the city is still bustling even at night. At a butcher shop, a vendor advertises marten meat for 5 million won. At another shop, a monster armor set is being sold for 50 million won. Looking at the market, he remarks that it's his first time seeing something so big. With a smile, he says he's glad he took the day off. To make the antidote, he needed to reach the 3rd star of his art, but pushing himself too hard caused a poison overload in his body. For the negotiation, the two meet at a coffee shop to discuss the details. The owner agrees to buy everything and asks to sign the contract right then and there. With a smile, Taeju asks if the antidote really worked that well. The owner says the medicine will revolutionize monster hunting in Jirisan. Ignoring the apology, he asks how much stock he still has. He replies that he has about 60,000 bottles ready for sale. With a smile, he confirms that additional production is possible at any time. Handing over the contract, the owner says he's already taken care of all the paperwork. Looking at the terms, he calculates the initial deal will bring in 3 billion won. With the discounts, He remarks that the taxes in free cities are something else. Making a proposal, he offers the antidote at an even lower price. He then asks if the owner doesn't run an orphanage in the city. Known as the father of orphans, the orphanage owner is very famous. Using the pharmacy's profits, he asks for a space to manufacture the antidote. Seeing the proposal, the owner says this is a true blessing for him. With the deal closed, the two shake hands to seal the contract. After signing, he goes to the market to buy equipment and take some time off. As he browses the shops, he comes across various pieces of equipment for sale in the display windows. Just then, a shopkeeper asks if he's in need of a new weapon. Turning to the man, he asks if the offer was really for him. Confirming the question, the shopkeeper says his shop is the best one around. With a smile, the shopkeeper even offers a special discount because he's handsome. Embarrassed, he replies that he doesn't need a new weapon at all. Seeing his reaction, the shopkeeper grabs his arm and insists on showing him the shop. Startled, he's dragged away by the shopkeeper, who pulls him into the shop by force. As he's pushed along, he wonders where this person gets their strength from. Wondering if she's an artisan, he sees various pieces of equipment in the shop. The shopkeeper then asks what he thinks of the swords displayed in the window. Impressed by the quality, he asks if she made all of this herself. Using his special eyes, he analyzes the quality of the shop's equipment. He then realizes the quality is high and that he shouldn't have judged by appearances. Showing a drawing, he asks if the artisan can make 100 of those blades. Looking at the drawing, she asks if he's going to use the blades personally. Confirming that he will, he explains that the material needs to be mana steel. After hearing everything, he just asks if she can make the blades. The artisan says yes, but it will take some time because of the materials. Giving him a handsome guy discount, she says the price is 250 million. Even though he finds it expensive, he says he'll pay the full amount immediately. After paying, she informs him she'll send a sample once it's ready. Now that he's secured the blades, he needs to find a good set of armor. Thinking about how to be like Dang Gonak, he considers wearing a cloak. Just then, he sees people staring at someone and decides on something more modern. While looking for a modern piece of armor, he hears someone call out to him. Confused, he turns around to see who's talking to him. Suddenly, a woman offers him a flyer for her new line of armor. Taking the flyer, he realizes a coat could work instead of a cloak. The scene opens on the free city of Guri, within the Samhan Empire's territory. On the bustling streets, a double-decker bus pulls up to a stop. From inside the bus, a young woman asks if that's really the castle. Two women gaze at the walled fortress, remarking on the place's vanity. One of them explains that only the rich and powerful are allowed to live there. The heiress of the Baekdu group, Jung Yeon-hui, complains about the local elite's segregation. Her secretary then asks if she came all this way just for a coat. She replies that it's not just any coat, but one made from Siberian fox fur. Besides being rare, the fur offers excellent defense and adapts to the climate. The secretary comments that such a rare material is worth the vacation time. Remembering her grandfather, she mentions he sent a black card for her to use. With the announcement of the next stop, the bus prepares to arrive at the market. Getting off the bus, the two women step onto the sidewalk to start their shopping. Without wasting time, she says she wants to go straight to the boutique to see the coat. Taeju, still on the street, looks at the flyer he got from a saleswoman. Entering the shop, he says someone outside referred him. Seeing the guest, the secretary wonders if he's also here for the coat. The shop owner then greets him, welcoming him to the boutique. She then recognizes him and asks if he's the porter, Kim Taeju. Confused, he says he doesn't know who she is and doesn't recognize her. She then reminds him of the orc attack, saying she was the mage in the group. With a smile, she says she's happy to have found him, as she was looking for him. Trying to leave, he says she's been through a lot and that he's on his way out. He had given the credit to the mage so he could live without drawing attention. Before she can question him, he realizes the smartest thing to do is run. Grabbing his arm, she asks him to wait and questions him about the attack. The guild questioned her about the orcs, and she just confirmed the story. Trying to pull away, he says there must have been a misunderstanding about everything. She says she doesn't know why he helped her, but she's very grateful. Thanking him again, she holds his hand, leaving him speechless. He admits he fought to save lives, but he also wanted to test his techniques. Apologizing, the mage says she put her savior in a difficult position. Just then, the secretary asks how much longer they're going to keep her lady waiting. Apologizing, the mage turns to find the tailor kneeling on the floor. He calls her by name, Miss Jung Yeon-hui, and kneels before her. Apologetically, he informs her that the coat she chose cannot be sold. Surprised, Tae-ju wonders what could have happened to the store's coat. Annoyed, the secretary complains that they already took the measurements and were about to process the payment. The mage explains that the coat was the most precious item she owned. Yeon-hui remains silent and apologizes for the trouble the situation has caused. Telling her secretary to stop, she says that's enough and ends the argument. Calmly, she just tells them to leave and exits the shop. The secretary complains, but she says it's no problem and that something came up. Seeing the important client leave, he realizes he put her in an awkward position. She tells him not to worry and asks why they refuse to sell the coat. With a smile, she asks if people ever say he's a bit clueless. He replies that it's the first time he's heard that, surprising her. She then reveals that the coat was, in fact, a gift for him. Shocked by the revelation, he wonders what she meant by that. Standing near the coat, she says she wants to repay her life debt to him. Refusing the gift, he says he didn't save her with good intentions. She replies that his intentions don't matter because he saved her and she's alive. She then asks him to save other people so they don't die like her partner did. Reflecting on her gratitude, he realizes he's never experienced this before. Used to criticism and contempt, he feels strange about her gratitude. Even though it's a new situation, he realizes the feeling isn't bad at all. Seeing her point of view, he agrees to gratefully accept the gift. Happy with his answer, she calls him over to get measured for the coat. Changing scenes, a man flies through the immortal realm, completely bored. Lying down, he complains about the boredom he feels in that place. Complaining about the boredom, the Sword Immortal says there's nothing to do. He continues to complain that everyone there is old and wears the same clothes. Then he notices that one of the men there is very different from the others. Seeing the guy from the Tang clan, he remarks that he came from the Marine world. He remembers the man started talking about another world and changed his style. So he wonders if the man went crazy or if he was always like this. Completely bored, he decides to ask the man for help to change his look too. With a smile, he agrees with his own idea and gets ready to go. Decided, he says he'll go find the man right now to have a talk. Grabbing a precious fruit, he believes he'll be taught if he offers it as a gift. The story takes us to the Baek orphanage in the city of Gurui. Heading down the stairs, a mysterious person makes their way to the building's basement. At the end of the hall, they enter a makeshift production room. Testing the water quality, the man appears to be making something new. Seeing the result, he says the product turned out well and is ready. He then puts a pill in his mouth, testing the new medicine he created. On the phone, he informs Mr. Baek that the solution's production is complete. The owner complains that the stock is almost gone and asks about the shipment. At the pharmacy, the owner says that with the antidote spreading, it's total chaos. The stock ran out fast, with entire teams buying everything they could. With a smile, Tae-ju tells him to announce that the supply will be constant. The owner agrees, but warns that copycat products could appear at any moment. Opening one of the vials, he says it's not a problem if that happens. He knows he can make another remedy, and that copying it is impossible without his art. The owner then asks him to bring a packaging machine as soon as possible. Complaining about the work, he says he hasn't been able to get back to his room for a week. Just then, two children appear and say a ghost lives in that place. Scared, the girl wonders if it's a real ghost. Suddenly, the vault door starts to open by itself in front of them. As the door opens, dark smoke begins to pour out from inside the vault. From the shadows, a mysterious figure emerges, startling the two children from the orphanage. With a creepy smile, he just says hi to the two intruders. Terrified, the children scream and run away from that place in fear. Shouting that he's a stinky ghost, the children flee and leave him behind. After finishing his work, he complains about being called a stinky ghost. Sniffing himself, he wonders if he really stinks that much right now. With a porter missing, he worries about being late for his meeting. Suddenly, a woman calls him by name, asking if he's Kim Tae-ju. He then turns around and sees a woman in high heels approaching him. She mentions the frightened children, adding that her father told her about the business. Confirming his identity, he asks who the woman in front of him is. She introduces herself as Baek Seo-yeon and says she grew up in the orphanage. She explains that she came to check the basement because of the ghost rumors. She then hands him a box, saying she wanted to deliver it to him. Seeing the box, he realizes it's the prototype for his new blades. Embarrassed, she asks him to continue maintaining a good relationship with her father. Telling the children to go take a bath, she says goodbye and heads upstairs. Before taking a shower, he decides to check the blade prototype first. Upon opening the box, he finds several blades and a note inside. The note from the seller asks him to test them and say what needs to be improved. With a look of disgust, he crumples the note, irritated by the seller's attitude. Angrily, he rips the note into several pieces and throws it away. Picking up one of the blades, he decides to ignore the seller's message. Analyzing the blade, he notices the product seems legitimate and well made. Testing the weight, he sees that the grip and balance are perfect. With the blades ready, he's excited to see the coat when it's finished. Thinking about the mage's offer, he decides he needs to settle the score and pay up. Short on time, he hurries to leave, but decides to take a shower. Changing scenes, the story takes us to the Jirisan monster zone. In a clearing, a group of hunters prepares for another day's work. Arriving at the location, he approaches his boss to start the job. Seeing him arrive, the boss greets him and waves his hand enthusiastically. Apologizing, he asks if the boss waited long for him. Just then, he's called out by someone, who glares at him intimidatingly. With his hand on his sword, the man says a late porter should apologize. Jang Won-jun, a raid member, asks if they're at a social club. Unfazed, he says he wasn't late and doesn't need to apologize. Annoyed, Yang threatens him, saying he needs to teach him how to apologize. Wondering what the problem is, he now understands why the spot opened up. The boss tells him to let it go, saying the contract penalty is high. Used to the situation, he apologizes to avoid more trouble with him. Telling him to get lost, another person warns that they're wasting time there. After the group moves away, the boss asks if he's okay and apologizes. Surprised, he asks if they're going to raid with only 7 people. He then approaches and says the number of people is too low. Saying he won't go on the raid, he warns that the group is too small. Annoyed, the man says a walking corpse won't stop talking back to him. With a cold stare, he repeats the man's words. Walking corpse? With his sword in hand, the man says he'll finish him right there. The raid leader then appears and tells him to stop the fight immediately. With a smirk, the man says the porters from Guri must be living well. Laughing at the situation, they decide to ignore the warning and continue with the plan. Wondering what their problem is, he realizes they've crossed the line. Without them noticing, he tells everyone to take the antidote and leave immediately. Seeing the situation, the boss apologizes for dragging him into this. The boss explains that they don't need as many people now because of the antidote. Telling him not to worry, the boss hands him a vial of the antidote. With a smile, he realizes that the power he holds has created a new change. Remembering the mage's words, he sees a chance to save more people. Fewer people get hurt, and his strength can save more lives, just as she asked. Wondering what his problem is, he realizes he has already lost control of his anger. The reason for this is likely the instinct of the absolute poison demon. His instinct is to not let anyone provoke him and to survive at all costs. Since the soul sharing, the poison heart has been merging with his own. Even though it's not a bad change, he knows he was too soft before. The boss asks him to stay by his side throughout the entire raid. Seriously, the boss warns that he's not joking about the danger either. Looking towards the forest, a wild intent is directed straight at them. In a flashback, the scene takes us to the Murim world, with the Jegal clan in flames. Floating above the destruction, a mysterious figure watches the scene from above. In the midst of the rubble, a man rises, wounded and surrounded by destruction. The clan leader, Jegal Cheon, screams, asking what Dangunak is doing. With a smile, he asks if he should call him the Thunder Demon. He reveals that the Jegal clan has been secretly allied with the demonic cult. Surrounded by swords, Jegal yells that this is a setup against his clan. Saying the cult always claims to be innocent, he offers him something. Upon seeing what it is, the clan leader is left completely shocked and speechless. The poison demon says he should at least say hello to his son. He explains that he personally escorted him after catching him killing innocents. Asking if he still thinks it's a setup, he calls him a demon. He then says he hates people who use the weak as shields to protect themselves. Desperate, Jegal begs for his life, promising to tell everything about the heavenly demon. Ignoring the plea, he says that countless warriors have died because of him. With a wave of his hand, he simply tells the man to disappear. Then he warns that he'll soon send the heavenly demon to join him. Surrounded by swords, Jegal is sent straight to hell without mercy. Back in the forest, one of the hunters comments on how easy the hunt was. Holding the energy crystals, he mocks Taiju for being scared. The chief tries to defend him, but Taiju understands the reason for their arrogance. Wondering if he should finish them off, he knows they will die anyway, but he refuses to let them be the first victims of his blades. Thanks to the antidote, the small group managed to defeat an entire pack of martens. With a serious look, he realizes the threat isn't over yet. Wondering if they could handle it, he hears a noise coming from the bushes. Warning that it's about to start, he tells the chief to stay close to him. The chief doesn't understand, but he warns him that it's just an ambush. A monster from Jirisan, known to be hard to handle, emerges from the shadows before them. Shocked, The chief stammers as he sees the red creature approaching them. In a panic, one of the hunters screams that it's a red-furred wolf. Asking for a second, he tells them not to worry, that nothing will happen. He knows the monster requires at least a regular rank hunter. The biggest problem is that the wolf charges forward and attacks one of the group members. They always move in pairs, and a second wolf emerges from the forest. In desperation, the younger brother tries to protect the older one from the attack. With a swift move, the wolf easily dodges the sword attack. Surprised, the hunter wonders what to do and what the leader's order is. One of the group members flees, leaving his partner behind in desperation. With two wolves, a member shouts that they're completely screwed now, telling them to do the usual. He says to use the porters as bait. The chief asks if he can do something, since they can't count on anyone else. With a determined look, he takes one of his new blades and gets ready. Using his technique, he launches a swift attack toward the wolf. The blow hits the monster dead on, causing a huge impact. The blade pierces through the wolf and hits the hunter who was behind it. The strike hits the wolf's head, piercing through and knocking it to the ground. With the impact, a scream of pain echoes throughout the surrounding forest. Startled, the chief wonders what just happened right in front of him. With one wolf down, he complains about the selfish attitude of the hunters in the group. He then says he hates people who use the weak as a shield to save themselves. From the noise, the hunter complains about the pain in his ear and gets scared. Looking to the side, he is shocked by the scene before him. Surprised, he wonders when the wolf was defeated in the battle. The chief then asks how he managed to defeat the wolf with a single blow. The second wolf, still alive, glares at him angrily and prepares to attack. Walking calmly, he just tells the wolf to stay quiet and not move. With a threatening gaze, he warns that if the wolf moves, it dies. He then turns around and asks if they always do this kind of thing. Questioning their attitude, he asks if they always throw the weak to the wolves. Angry, the man yells that the weak should die for the awakened. With a cold stare, he says that's exactly what he thought. He then says they should experience the same thing firsthand. Then, he throws a blade at the cliff, luring the wolf toward them. With a hateful glare, he simply orders them to fight for their lives. The hunters are terrified, not understanding what's happening. Sitting on a rock, he informs them that he's already taken care of one of the wolves. Wounded, the leader complains that he can't just attack an awakened and walk away. Begging for his life, he asks Taeju to help him kill the wolf. With a swift movement, he throws a blade toward the group leader. The attack slices the leader's ear, who screams in pain and surprise from the blow. Repeating his words, he says he's just a porter, and they are the combatants. He then asks where all their confidence from when they were killing the Martins went. With the wolf closing in, he simply orders them to fight to survive. With a look of contempt, he tells them they're the ones who'll be doing the fighting. As the wolf approaches, the hunters are left confused by the situation. Injured, the man asks if he really thinks they'll obey him. He replies that he doesn't know, but the wolf seems to think otherwise. Shouting for them to spread out, the hunter tries to organize a defense against the wolf, but the wolf lunges forward and suddenly lands a powerful blow to his face. The force of the impact sends him flying, crashing onto the forest floor. Crying out in pain, the leader swears he'll kill the porter for this. Just then, the wolf charges and attacks him from behind, biting down on his head. As one of the women screams, the wolf moves in to attack the rest of the group. The woman freezes in fear, staring at the creature coming toward her. Seeing the terror in her eyes, the wolf prepares to strike without mercy. In a swift motion, the wolf bites down hard on the woman's arm. After biting her, it throws her lifeless body to the ground. Surveying the scene, the wolf glares at the rest of the group with its red eyes. Facing the group, the wolf gets ready to attack the remaining survivors. In despair, the chief warns that the monster is coming for them. Sitting on the rock, he says he would have let them live if they had just run away. Mocking the wolf, he says the monster got cocky from defeating Trash. Seeing there's no other way, he prepares to fight the wolf. Leaping from the rock, he declares that the wolf will die right here. He then strikes the wolf's head with a blast of poisonous energy. Using his poison palms, he unleashes a powerful attack on the monster. The burst of energy explodes in the forest, causing a massive impact. The chief wonders how he's so strong without a tattoo. He then remembers the orcs and wonders if he was the one who killed them. Witnessing his power, the chief wonders what will happen to him now. Before he can speak, the chief drops to his knees and begs for his life. Unimpressed, he asks why he would kill him and tells him to get up. Still afraid, the chief asks if he really isn't going to do anything. Telling the chief to stand, he asks if he's injured anywhere. The chief replies that he's fine and will do anything he asks. With a dark smile, he tells the chief not to say a word to anyone. Terrified, the chief says he saw nothing and won't tell a soul. Thanking him for his help, he asks if they can go down the mountain now. On the forest floor, the hunters' bodies are left behind. Looking at the bodies, he says the monsters will take care of them, just like in Siorak. As the poison demon, he knows that people who exploit the weak must die. Changing scenes, the story takes us to the YJ Pharmacy headquarters. Outside a meeting room, the atmosphere feels incredibly tense. With a hollow thud on the table, a man questions why sales have been cut in half. Looking at the newspapers, he blames Kim Tae-ju and Beck Pharmacy for the loss. In a meeting, one of the men complains they should have gotten rid of him sooner. The owner of Sejipyeong Pharmacy says they hold 20% of the pharmacy market. The owner of Guri Nuri Pharmacy complains about the committee protecting the orphanage. One of the men asks why he's just yelling instead of offering a solution. The CEO of YJ Pharmacy, Jo Hun-seok, calls for calm, saying they're always bickering. With a smile, he says they're all in the same boat and should help each other. The CEO reveals that everyone there has failed to manufacture a copy of the antidote. One of the men says it's only a matter of time until they can make a copy. Annoyed, another man says the problem is now and that they're going to go bankrupt. The CEO says there's nothing to be done and that they'll do what they always do. With a smirk, one of the men says he was hoping to hear those words from him. Pressing a button, the CEO asks him to take a look at the investigation. The screen shows that the antidote's developer is Kim Tae-ju, age 29. Surprised, one of the men wonders if he's the master's son. The CEO says that's just the surface level information and there's more. He reveals that Tae-ju is a mana reject, kicked out of his home and the army. One of the men understands the story and assumes he cut ties with his family. The CEO says he wants to approach him first to secure the sales rights. With a smile, he says, if Tae-ju refuses, they'll do things their usual way. Changing scenes, the story takes us to the Imperial Army base in Jirisan. Outside, someone knocks on the commander's door who tells them to enter. Saluting, the officer introduces himself to his superior, who asks about the investigation. He then places the report with the investigation details on the commander's desk. Reading the file, he discovers that Tae-ju is the general's son and a reject. Recalling the refusal, he mentions they had tried to buy the antidote before. With the antidote, he knows he can perform a sweep before the next wave. Telling him to contact Paju, he requests a meeting with General Kim. The scene is set in a military facility at the Paju domain. Inside, someone confirms he has understood his master's orders. Then, his hand reaches out to answer a ringing phone. He comments that, as they say, even a maggot knows how to roll. Entering the office, a woman talks about how weak Tae-ju was. She then announces she's going straight to Gurye and has already booked the tickets. But the man sitting in the chair just tells her to leave him alone. She asks what he said, and he repeats for her to leave him. Smiling, she says the family registry is just a piece of paper and they need to help him. She then yells at him to stop if he has any conscience. Faced with the argument, she just clenches her fist tightly. Shouting, she demands he call and provide the antidote to the military. She continues her lecture, talking about their hardships and the children's future. With his hands clasped, he suggests she go ask Tae-ju herself. He then reinforces that he has already made it clear he doesn't want to do it. Turning her face away, she clicks her tongue, showing her complete dissatisfaction. Then she turns away, telling him he can do whatever he wants. Right after, she storms out of the room, slamming the door hard. Alone in the office, he just clenches his fist tightly. He leans back, remembering he thought the young man was already dead. Smiling, he says he feels relieved that he's doing something useful. The scene changes, moving to the bustling market of Guri. There, the pair arrives in front of a shop called Flame Boutique. Inside the store, several elegant suits are displayed on hangers. He then tries on a coat, and the woman says it looks just as she expected. With a smile, she states that the outfit looks truly perfect on him. He thanks her, commenting that a coat made from monsters is on another level. He then praises the item's lightness and high defense. Pointing out the details, he says the extra space is just as he wanted. From this, she deduces he's a combat awakened who carries weapons. He asks how much it costs, but she says there's no need. It's the price for her life. Worried, he says she gave him something that was already reserved for another customer. She then assures him it's fine, as she has already sent a different item to the customer. With his arms crossed, he just continues to observe the situation in silence. Pointing to the shelves, he announces he'll take everything from that entire section. With his phone in hand, he explains he wants to give them as gifts to the children at the orphanage. She agrees to pack everything up since he insists, and asks for a moment. As she walks away, he thinks to himself that she's a really good person. At that exact moment, the bell on the shop door chimes. Arriving unexpectedly, a man announces he was looking for Tae-ju. His firm steps lead him toward the protagonist, who watches him. With a smile, he introduces himself as Jo Hun-seok, CEO of YJ Pharmacy. Tae-ju just stares at the business card, making no move to take it. Laughing at the situation, the man says his sudden visit must have made him uncomfortable. Wanting to know the reason, he asks what the man wants and how he found him. Getting straight to the point, he reveals that his pharmaceutical association knows everything. He then asks Taiju to provide him with the mosquito antidote as well. With a smirk, Taiju asks if that's a favor or a threat. The man replies that for now, it's a favor, but Taiju immediately refuses. Rejecting the offer, he says he won't betray the people who trusted him. The CEO then offers 5 billion for the formula, but Taiju scoffs at the amount. Gritting his teeth, he stands by his decision not to sell the formula, no matter what. Turning his back, the man warns that it will be difficult for him to remain in Guri. Taiju tells him not to worry and to just find the exit on his own. Once outside, he says on the phone that the young man will regret it. With a serious look, he orders them to start their work, just as they always do. The scene changes again, this time to a construction site in Gurye. Filled with gifts, the shopping bags are placed on the ground. Carrying everything, he arrives and tells the old man that he's here. An older man greets him and asks what he's carrying. Explaining he wanted to give back, he says he bought some clothes for the children. At the gesture, a single tear rolls down the old man's face. Very emotional, he says Taiju is a blessing and promises to work even harder. With a smile, the young man replies that he's glad he likes it. He then thanks him for all the help, announcing he's ready to accept the proposal. The old man then asks if he has finally made a decision about that matter. Taiju confirms, explaining that the CEO of YJ Pharmacy approached him earlier. Worried by the news, the man asks if that guy tried anything. He denies it, saying it was just some intimidation that made him remember something. Because of that, he decides to found the company, asking for his continued help. He then announces he will leave the construction in his hands, as he'll be away. Finally, he explains that he will develop medicine until the company is ready. Introducing the poison spirit art, a unique and powerful martial technique. Developed from the fusion of various arts, it is composed of 10 stars. Its levels are divided into classes, ranging from basic to the peak realm. Upon reaching 10 stars, one must awaken their spirit to use the secret techniques. It was with this ability that Master Dangunak defeated the heavenly demon. The scene shifts to a forest, now showing a monster zone in Jirisan. Suddenly, a powerful attack strikes the ground with devastating force. He then lunges through the air toward a huge, ferocious creature. Focused on the combat, he prepares to land the first blow against the monster. Holding his weapon firmly, he aims for a vital point on his target. In a swift move, he strikes the creature's chest with a precise attack. The force of the impact sends the monster flying backward, unable to react. After the blow, the creature falls to the ground, completely defeated by him. He then remarks that the monster has a body the size of a tiger. Then he notices the creature's hide was too tough for his weapons. Assessing his power, he says his poison art is only at level 3. Finding a large poison sac, he says the training is just a review. Knowing the theory, he just needs to absorb new poisons to grow quickly. His body was previously stuck, but now it is stabilized and he can advance to the next stage. Wiping his face, he says he will absorb the poison from the deer he was hunting. Shouting, he runs to retrieve his blades, remembering their high cost. Hiding, he observes his target, a monster described as docile and non-aggressive. With 2 humps on its back, the creature resembles a type of camel. Advancing at high speed, he runs directly toward his new target. Upon death, the monster's humps explode, revealing the creature's true danger. From them emerges a cloud of deadly, ultra-fine spores, spreading throughout the area. As the spores spread, he stands still in the middle of the poisonous cloud. Analyzing the poison, he comments that it melts even gas mask filters. Touching one of the spores, he claims it's the strongest poison he's ever found. Sitting on the ground, he begins the process of absorbing all the poison from the area. Concentrating fully, he begins to absorb all the poisonous energy from the environment. With a determined expression, he channels the power he's gathering into his body. The toxic energy then condenses, forming a small sphere in his hands. Then he pulls all that formed energy directly into his system. Using the poison spirit art, he converts the toxin into internal energy. As a result of the process, his power finally reaches the 4-star level. Opening his eyes, he wonders how many hours he spent meditating like that. He notes that it wasn't easy, but now he understands the poison's perfect composition. Using this advantage, he decides he needs to get much stronger and faster. A memory from the past hits him, and he promises to no longer be weak. Swearing to himself, he vows he will never go through that again. Back in the present, he continues the process of refining the poison core. Finally, the process is complete, and he announces he has reached 4 stars. With the core in one hand, he comments that it took as long as it needed to. Then he stands up and stretches, feeling his new power flow. Seeing the sun set, he realizes he stayed longer than planned. With his backpack on, he decides it's finally time to go back. He starts walking, commenting that leaving his post for so long worries him. Arriving back in the city, he goes straight to Beck Pharmacy at night. As soon as he enters, he drops his large equipment backpack on the floor. Announcing his arrival, he says he's back and asks if everyone is okay. Looking at the empty shelves, he remarks that business seems to still be very strong. Greeting him, the old man says it's been half a month and they were worried. The young woman then turns and also welcomes Taiju. Explaining himself, he says he turned off his phone and asks why everyone is so serious. Then the old man reveals that pharmaceutical reps came and took all the products. He continues saying the approval committee demanded the antidote's ingredient list. He immediately asks if they think this was Jo Hun-seok's doing. The old man confirms that the method aligns with his, as he is a member of the committee. Asking what will happen, he's told that in the worst case scenario, sales will be banned. With his arms crossed, he says that even the imperial appointee is involved in this. He then warns that neither he nor his master will back down and will strike first. Looking at the old man, he suggests they strike first with a real threat. Not understanding, the pharmacist asks what he means by striking first. He then suggests closing the shop now, since they claim it has side effects. Elsewhere, the scene is set in front of an orphanage at night. There, a large piece of meat is being prepared for their dinner. They're all gathered outside for a big nighttime barbecue. Bringing the fork to his mouth, he tries a piece of the roasted meat. He's surprised by the taste. He then imagines himself in a state of pure ecstasy from the delicious flavor. He recognizes the taste and realizes this venison is a fine imperial delicacy. Before, the meat was monopolized by the emperor, as there was no way to remove the poison. With a smile, he says he made the right choice for the next medicine. His goal was to prevent civilians from dying of poison during monster waves. Seeing everyone loving it, he considers maybe starting a venison business. He also considers supplying the emperor and testing the Grandmaster's skills. Clearing his throat, the older man brings him back to reality. He then thanks Taiju for sharing such rare meat with them. He finishes by saying it's incredible that the medicine is the antidote to that poison. Worried, the man asks if it's right to close the pharmacy like that. Eating another piece, he assures the man that everything is fine, asking him to trust him. He says they'll see who gets more desperate. Days later, the pharmacy's doors remain completely closed to the public. Annoyed with the situation, a hunter complains that it's already the 5th day. Then others comment on the rumors of adverse reactions and pressure from the committee. Overhearing the conversation, a man says sales might be suspended soon. Seeing the commotion, someone shouts and holds out a hand to stop the warrior. But the angry hunter decides to draw his weapon, ready to cause more trouble. Arriving suddenly, a man warns that he won't tolerate any disturbance there. Recognizing the captain, the hunter accuses him of siding with YJ Pharmacy. He then announces the committee's decision to suspend sales pending analysis. Shouting, the warrior says it's ridiculous, as he participated in the tests and is fine. Other hunters agree, demanding that sales continue or that they bring a witness. With a slight smile, the master just finds the whole situation quite amusing. With a threatening look, he asks since when trash like him talks back to him. Saying that's enough, he tells them to get lost because they're not worth his time. But the hunter in front warns that none of them are leaving. With his arms crossed, the man named Park Jin-soo stands his ground. At this, the master asks if he finds his words funny and draws his weapon. Immediately, the warrior apologizes and runs away as fast as he can. He then sheathes his weapon, complaining that it's annoying to deal with this. Determined, he says he'll have to deal with Jo Hun-seok for manipulating the committee. Meanwhile, a car stops on the street and someone calls for the investigator. Elsewhere, Jo Hun-seok thanks someone for controlling Master Lee Jong-hak. On the other end of the line, it's explained that the master is only one of 3. With a smile, he announces that the next phase of the plan has already begun. Promising a good reward, he says they can last a week at most. In an office, the nameplate on the desk identifies General Oh Jin-young. Sitting in the office, one officer asks another if that's really true. He announces that he will supply 1 million bottles to the Jirisan Defense Corps. Faced with the proposal, Commander Oh Jin-young just listens in complete silence. With a fixed gaze, he then repeats the amount of 50 billion won. Seeing the reaction, he wonders if the commander is annoyed by the price. Then, the officer comments that the commander seems to be in a very good mood. The commander then asks if, even at that price, he can still make a profit. Not knowing what to say, he just stays silent for a moment. Turning to his aide, he asks if the reserve funds cover the amount. He then requests the transfer of half, but mentions there's another product in the deal. He explains that he's starting a company and has therefore developed a new medicine. After speaking, he reaches out and grabs a package that was stored away. Holding the cup, he asks the commander to try some of the product. Surprised, the commander asks what that is in front of him. He confirms it's meat, saying it was prepared especially for the commander. Sniffing the meat, he says it's not bad, even though he's been cutting back on meat lately. Suggesting it as a gift for the emperor, the officer hears that the meat is from a poisonous deer. Shocked, The officer asks if it's the same deer from the celestial juices. As the man reacts, he just calmly continues to drink his beverage. At this, the commander says the army needs young men like him and invites him to join. Forgetting the contract, he wonders if he should just kill the commander right then and there. Located on the border, the Jirisan Monster Defense Corps is introduced. He then explains that their mission is to control the waves of monsters. With his arms crossed, he announces he's finally gotten his big break. Then he comments on the surprising antidote for the deer's venom. Arriving in the room, the aide reports that the deposit has been sent and the orders fulfilled. He confirms the decision was due to the conflict with the Pharmaceutical Association. Sitting in his chair, the commander orders him to keep an eye on Kim Tae-ju. He then thanks his aide for staying by his side all this time. With a serious face, the aide thanks him for finally giving him proper recognition. At that, the commander shouts for his aide, who shouts back with the same intensity. To support his officer, the commander places a firm hand on his shoulder. Shouting, he tells them to use this chance to rise to the imperial court. The aide then runs down the hall shouting, "Hooray for Kim Tae-ju!" and laughing. The scene changes, now showing Kim Tae-ju's new, large house. Inside the building, it's mentioned that the company's foundation is progressing smoothly. Sitting in the room, the old man says that all that's left is to decide on the company's name. Reading the newspaper, he comments that the contract with the military fortunately worked out. He then explains that the general managed to get their story published as an exclusive. Then, the old man asks if he used the contract deposit to pay off the loan. Very annoyed with the bank, he says he closed all the accounts they had there. Agreeing with the decision, he asks to use what's left to maintain the orphanage. After a while, he reveals that he can't run the company alone and needs a partner. Inviting the pharmacist, he asks if the old man wants to go into business with him. Surprised, the old man says he only ever managed a pharmacy and can't be of much help. Insisting on the offer, he says he only knows how to make the medicine, not how to sell it. With a smile, the pharmacist finally accepts his partnership offer. He then suggests a 90-10 split, but the young man immediately refuses. Explaining his decision, he offers 70-30, saying it's that or nothing. The old man then says he accepts, but he won't be the one managing things. Revealing her identity, he says it's Baek Seo-yeon, the young woman from the orphanage bunker. Saying she's the brightest, he offers to bring her over immediately. With a smile, he says that any capable person is always more than welcome. Shaking hands, they seal the new partnership they've just formed. He then suggests the company name, and the old man agrees right away. At that, the old man mentions he's already called some of the awakened who grew up in the orphanage. Not understanding, he asks why he suddenly called those people. The old man then explains that they will act as his personal bodyguards. He refuses, saying they should be protecting the orphanage instead of him. Still worried, the old man wonders what exactly he's trusting in so much. He then notices the young man doesn't even have a rank tattoo and was a soldier. With an ear twitching, he seems to have overheard the entire conversation. He asks if he hasn't earned his trust yet, and the old man immediately denies it. Saying it's fine, he grabs his coat to leave. Heading for the elevator, he asks him to call them all over right now. He then reveals he's going to prove what he can do and test the antidote. With a smile, he announces he's taking them all on a hunt. Shifting to the border zone, they arrive at the Jirisan Mountains. Following the trail, the group advances into the dangerous forest. Looking at his coat, one of the youths notices the lack of a rank tattoo. Tapping his shoulder, he calls out to President Kim Tae-ju to talk. He then informs him that from this point on, monsters will appear, and he will take the lead. Hearing the warning, he simply asks the young man to call him Hyung. He agrees, but insists that Hyung stay behind for safety. Seeing his reaction, the young man apologizes if his attitude seemed a bit rude. He assures him it's fine, as he's used to this kind of concern. Pointing ahead, he tells them to save the talk for after they've dealt with that. Confused, the young man asks what exactly he's talking about. Suddenly, several pairs of red eyes appear in the darkness of the woods. At that, he shouts, recognizing them as the dangerous storm weasels. Emerging from the shadows, the creatures leap out to attack the group of hunters. Under attack, the young hunters prepare to fight the weasels. Surprised, he wonders where those storm weasels came from so quickly. Meanwhile, the protagonist crouches down, preparing his counterattack against the horde. Taking out his weapons, he holds several nails between his fingers. He also reveals several small spheres hidden inside his coat. With a focused gaze, he gets ready to launch his attack against the monsters. Using his technique, he fires a shower of projectiles in all directions. The projectiles hit the monsters, neutralizing all of them in a single coordinated strike. Stunned, the young hunter just stares, not understanding what happened. Even as a pack, the creatures are hit and fall to the ground one by one. The assault continues, hitting every monster trying to escape the area. Seeing the result, he realizes that all the enemies have been completely wiped out. After the fight, he stands up and just dusts off his hands. He then comments that, of all things, it had to be a pack of weasels. Finally, he says he didn't even need to draw his reusable willow blades. He explains that he couldn't risk them getting hurt at all. To end the fight, he used all his hidden weapons at once. Looking at the destruction, he complains about losing over 200 weapons in the process. Just then, the young hunter calls out to him, wanting to understand what just happened. He then asks if Taiju is a master, seeing no other explanation. Stating he's not an awakened one, he announces he'll be leading from now on, but the young man protests, saying his father told him to stay safe. Ignoring him, he just moves on, heading deeper into the forest. Taking a break, the group stops to rest for a bit on the trail. Suddenly, he spots a poisoned deer grazing peacefully nearby. Noticing their presence, the animal raises its head, looking in their direction. Seeing the monster, the young hunter asks what his Hyung plans to do. With a smile, he explains that the creature knows it can't attack. Then he orders everyone to take the medicine, because they are the ones who will take it down. Surprised, they ask if they're really the ones who are going to hunt the creature. Holding the bottle, he wonders if he can trust something still in the testing phase. He then clutches the bottle, remembering that the man had shown them his power. Determined, he drinks the antidote, saying it's their turn to prove themselves. Announcing he'll go first, he asks for support with mana weapons if needed. Wielding his sword, he prepares to attack the deer standing there. Charging forward, he runs toward the monster to land the first sword strike. Startled, the creature lets out a sharp cry that echoes throughout the forest. At the cry, the other hunters cover their ears, trying to shield themselves from the sound. Unfazed, he leaps and prepares to slash the monster with his weapon. With a quick and precise move, he slices the creature in two. Even cut in half, the animal still moves on the ground, twitching violently. In despair, one of the hunters shouts for everyone to watch out for the explosion. Just then, the deer's humps explode, releasing a cloud of poisonous spores. Thanks to the antidote, the group stands in the middle of the poison, completely unharmed. Watching everything, he remarks that he didn't trust them, but they aren't bad. He thinks about the antidote and the young man, noting his lack of skill, but great courage. Laughing, one of the hunters yells to Chang-hun that she's perfectly fine. With a smile, he realizes the antidote worked perfectly, just as expected. Walking along the trail, he asks if they now believe in the antidote's power. At that, they all apologize to their Hyung for doubting his new medicine. Telling them not to worry, he announces the hunt continues deeper into the forest. Turning around, he tells them to secure the meat, warning that these deer will soon be extinct. The scene changes, shifting to the capital of the Samhan Empire. There, the Marinai Group headquarters stands out among the city's buildings. Inside the office, several employees are working, focused on their computers. Suddenly, a voice approaches and calls for Manager Bayek, who is busy working. Turning around, she answers the vice director, introducing herself as Bayek Seoyeon. Getting straight to the point, he asks if she's from the Bayek orphanage, run by director Hong Pyo. She confirms this, but asks why he's asking. With a smile, he says his memory served him right and tells her to drop everything. Not understanding the order, she apologizes and asks what he meant. He then explains that she's going down to Guri to handle a task. She then asks what he's talking about, not quite understanding the situation. Showing her the newspaper, he asks if she hasn't read about the new Tai Hung company. She confirms she read about the antidote, wondering why he's acting this way. He then explains that the pharmacy is a subsidiary and everyone already knows it. The order is clear. Go to Guri and get close to her father to investigate. Shocked by the proposal, she realizes he wants her to betray her own father. Suddenly, her phone starts ringing, and she sees it's her father. She asks to take the call, and the vice director tells her to be quick. Answering the call, she says yes, and listens to what he has to say. With his arms crossed, the man just waits for the call to end a bit impatiently. Hanging up, she says she understands and will talk to him later. Adjusting his glasses, he asks if she's finally made a decision about the proposal. Holding her ID badge, she stands up and announces she's going down to Guri. He praises her choice, but before they can continue, she cuts him off abruptly. Yanking her ID badge hard, she strikes him right in the middle of his chest. With a smile on her face, she announces that she's quitting this terrible company. Then she says he's always annoyed her, and now he's asking her to betray her father. As he yells, she simply walks away without another word. The scene changes, returning to Kim Taeju's building in Guri. Inside, the group of hunters is busy organizing supplies in the storage room. Arriving on site, He thanks everyone for the good work they did today. The young hunter thanks him, and he tells them to go back to the orphanage and rest. Questioning the order, he asks about the mission his father gave him to protect him. He then tells them to go protect the children and the director at the orphanage. He assures them the orphanage is safe and tells them to pack their things to go. But he adds that the world is full of crazy people, especially in Guri. From the doorway, he says goodbye to the group as they head back to the orphanage. That's why he says he needs trustworthy people, like them, to protect them. Heading to the elevator, he notes that he'll finally have time to focus on new medicines. Standing before the door, he reflects that things have gotten much bigger than he expected. Riding the elevator up, he reflects that there's no downside to making a lot of money. Walking down the hall, he looks at the new home he managed to buy on his own. He then comments that having his own place feels a little strange to him. Leaving his coat on the rack, he starts to think about his entire journey. Remembering the past, he sees himself as an outcast who thought he would die. His path was tough, from the army to working as a simple porter, but he concludes that the biggest gain of all was meeting good people. Lying in his new bed, he comments on how quickly everything happened. Determined, he declares that Guri will be the base for his final comeback. Outside, two mysterious figures watch the building at night. The gang leader Ma Sang-sik asks if that's the kid's building. With a smirk, he comments that the rookie from Gurie is buying up everything. Then his henchman mentions the success of the mosquito antidote and the next one. Annoyed, the boss yells at him, and he immediately apologizes for the comment. He then says that if it weren't for the request, he would have taken the formula himself. Nodding to the boss, the henchman says they have to follow the chairman's orders. Preparing to break in, one of the men uses his tools to pick the lock. Climbing the stairs, the gang members move stealthily to the upper floor. In front of the door, he orders them to just stick him with the needle without a word. The door then opens slowly, revealing a clear path for them to enter. Holding the syringe, the man enters the dark room to carry out his mission. Approaching the bed, he gets ready to inject the substance into his target, but as he tries to strike, he is caught off guard and thrown hard to the floor. The man tries to use the syringe, but his wrist is grabbed firmly. Holding the intruder's arm, he stops him from giving the injection right then. He then says he thought about letting them use the drug, but changed his mind. From the doorway, the gang leader yells for his henchman to give the shot already. Frightened, the man replies that his hand won't move at all. The boss asks what he means by that, not understanding the situation. Then a voice announces that he knew they were there from the very beginning. Completely confused, the henchman asks where that voice suddenly came from. Holding the syringe, he says he forgot to mention that he's afraid of needles. Then a henchman asks the boss if he's really a mana reject. Playing with the syringe, he wonders if the effect lessens if taken orally. Furious, the boss calls him a maggot for stealing his drug and challenging him. Watching the scene, the boss asks why he's taking the drug like that. Without hesitation, he drips the liquid onto his tongue to taste the substance. Fallen on the floor, the syringe is now completely empty after being used. Then he says the poison works well, asking if they have any more. He knew the rumors about a gang dealing drugs in the slums of Guri. The drug they were using was actually a type of poison. With his 4 stars, he could easily handle a poison like that. That's why he decided to take the drug, to test its effects on his body. He then absorbs the drug from the henchmen's bodies, leaving them completely clean. After healing them, he demands to know who sent them there. Terrified, the boss says he'll be killed if he tells him the truth. Soon after, a loud scream is heard from inside the building during the night. The next day, several cars are seen driving down a city highway. Inside one of the cars, a man is seen looking out the window. He then asks if the one who made the report was the mosquito antidote guy. In the driver's seat, the woman confirms and gives the details of the report. With his hand on his head, he complains that Jo Hun-seok messed everything up like an idiot. The real problem is Baek Hong-pyo, whose reputation is too clean and high. Looking out the window, he realizes this is going to be a very long conflict. Looking out the window, he realizes that in the end, this was the only way. Kneeling on the ground, the gang members are surrendered in front of the building. Suffering from withdrawal, the gang leader begs for a little more of the drug. Stepping forward, the sound of footsteps approaches the scene. Suddenly, a group of 3 people arrives, greeting everyone present. With open arms, the pharmacist greets Master Lee and the others. Walking past him, Master Lee just tells him to get out of the way. Lying on the ground, the gang leader continues to beg for more drugs. Ordering everyone to stand back, Master Lee calls out the gang leader's name. Readying his weapon, he prepares to execute the man right there. Shouting, he declares he will execute him with the authority granted by the Emperor. The weapon then fires a beam of energy towards the kneeling prisoner. The attack hits the gang leader square in the head. But before it hits, another man appears and asks why he's killing him. Showing his phone, he reveals the gang leader's recorded confession. Showing the recording, he says it seems the master already knows everything. Annoyed, the master asks who he is, and he introduces himself as Kim Taiju. The master recognizes the name, remembering the famous mosquito antidote. With a furious look, he glares at the young man who challenges him without fear. Taeju then steps closer, and the master asks if that's supposed to impress him. With his sword already in hand, he scoffs, asking if it's supposed to be a big deal. Suddenly, he seems to finally remember where he really knows him from. In a flashback, he recalls the porter boy from a long time ago. Keeping a firm gaze, he shows no reaction to the master's comment. He then confirms, saying it's a face he's seen before. The master then asks if he was the one who created the famous antidote. With a confident smile, he begins to say that right here in Gurye. He finishes his sentence, warning that his word is absolute law. Making a final offer, he suggests everything end with the 4 heads, but he refuses the proposal, and the master prepares to finally act. Challenging him, the master lunges forward to attack, telling him to try and stop him. He then dodges the attack, clicking his tongue in contempt. He then counterattacks, launching his blades towards Master Lee, but the master manages to defend himself, blocking the projectiles with his own sword. In an instant, a flurry of attacks is unleashed in his direction. While defending, the master asks if he was the one who captured the gang's henchman. Noticing a scratch on his hand, he says the kid has at least one decent move. With a wicked smile, he sentences him to death for obstructing a master. Scoffing, he asks if masters are really that impressive. Suddenly, an outside voice wonders what the guild leader is relying on. Without hesitation, he lunges forward, jumping to attack the master with everything he's got. Using his blades, he creates a shower of attacks that head in his direction. The master prepares to defend, focusing his energy into the sword he wields. Suddenly, a helicopter approaches, and a voice shouts for them to stop. From the vehicle, several men jump towards the scene of the intense combat. Landing on the ground, the group of men prepares to intervene in the fight. Leading the group, the commander says that's enough and tells the master to stop. With all the groups gathered, the dust from the battle finally begins to settle. Approaching, the commander greets him, saying it's been a long time since they've seen each other. He then asks what brings the master to a free city like this one. Replying, the commander asks if he needs permission to just show up here. Annoyed by the response, the master says the army is meddling in Guri's affairs, but the commander denies it, saying he isn't there as a soldier today. He introduces himself simply as Oh Jin Hyung, an ordinary person minding his own business. Waving goodbye, he suggests they each go their own way. The master just watches him leave with an expression of pure rage. Approaching Taiju, he asks if the young man is hurt anywhere. Assuring him that he's fine, they shake hands, sealing the conversation between them. Then the commander asks who did this, demanding just the name of the person responsible. Other commanders step forward, warning that nothing can happen to him. One of them offers to assign some officers as his personal escort. Another commander even asks if he should prepare a tonic for his recovery. Watching the scene, the master wonders if they already knew each other. Saying he has no choice, he says goodbye and decides to retreat for now. The commander then invites him to stay and talk a little longer with them. Annoyed, he replies that he's not as idle as the commander and his group. With a smile, the commander says he's surprised by something he saw. The master asks what exactly he's surprised about at this particular moment. Pointing to the prisoners, he says, Guri's trash should have been cleaned up by now. The master says he doesn't need help and that he'll deal with the gang. But before leaving, the commander asks him to leave the prisoners with him. Furious with the request, he asks if the army didn't say they wouldn't get involved. The commander replies that those men tried to kidnap a good friend of his. He then warns that this is a clear violation of the region's imperial decrees. Then the commander asks if he thinks he's just some random master. The master just stares at him, surprised and at a loss for words. Then he asks what punishment he would receive if he killed him right there. With a hand on his chest, the master grinds his teeth in pure frustration and rage. Then the other soldiers ask if he's just going to watch or if he's going to act. With no choice, he just stares at the group of soldiers, sweating nervously. His companions also remain silent, just watching the tension build more and more. Gritting his teeth, he realizes there's no way out of this complicated situation. Giving the final order, he yells for everyone to get in the car and go back. With his arms crossed, the commander comments on how adored that guy is in Gurye. Taeju then approaches and thanks the lieutenant general for his help. Laughing, the commander replies that they're in the same boat and should help each other. Arriving on the scene, the pharmacist thanks everyone for coming so quickly. The commander asks if he's okay, and the old man replies that it was a close call. He then says that if they hadn't been called, things could have ended very badly. He also celebrates that they managed to keep possession of the gang's prisoners. Touching his shoulder, the commander offers to take care of the prisoners personally, but he refuses the help, saying that this is a strictly personal matter. The commander warns that the security of the entire military corps is at stake. He then says they need to make sure they don't cross paths with Lee Jong-hak again. He remembers that his blade scratched him and that the poison didn't affect him. Wondering if he would have won, he realizes he's still not strong enough. Looking at the horizon, he decides he needs to get much, much stronger. The decision is made so that a situation like that never happens again. In his car, the master complains of pain and curses at the other two. He then realizes the pain is coming from the scratch he got on his hand earlier. Suddenly, the veins on his hand begin to spread, revealing the poison. In great pain, he grits his teeth, trying to endure the effects of the poison. With his other hand, he grabs his affected wrist, trying to stop the spread. Frightened, he asks what this is, seeing the poison spread through his body. In the mirror, the driver asks what's happening to the guild leader. Desperate, he screams for them to take him to a hospital as quickly as possible. The car then speeds down the highway, racing to the nearest hospital. Already losing consciousness, he wonders what kind of poison this is. Meanwhile, a helicopter flies over the mountains, heading to its final destination. Inside the vehicle, the commander and his men are transporting the gang members. Desperate, the gang leader offers to tell them everything he knows, but the commander refuses, saying it's not necessary since they already know everything. He then calls for Jun Tai, who stands up to carry out the order. The man grabs the door handle, preparing to open the compartment. With the door open, he stands on the edge, looking at the sky. Ordering them to get out, he starts pushing the prisoners out of the helicopter. As they fall, their desperate screams echo through the open sky. After getting rid of everyone, he returns and reports that the cleanup is done. The commander then orders him to also take care of the escaped Jo Hun-seok. Next, he tells his men to assign troops to the new Taihong company. Zipping up his jacket, he decides to use this chance to connect with Kim Tae-ju. Changing scenes, a woman is seen walking through a busy train station. Suddenly, her cell phone starts ringing with a call from Baek Chang-hoon. Answering the phone, she tells him she's at the terminal and just got off. Surprised, she asks if he really did everything Chang-hoon told her. Walking down the street, she comments that she used to think he was a con artist. Once inside the taxi, she says she'll see him at home and hangs up. She asks the driver to take her to the Beck orphanage in the city. On the way, she reflects that there was a good reason her father called for her. Arriving in front of the orphanage, the car stops and she gets out. There, she sees several children and the director cooking in a large cauldron. Calling out to her father, he turns around and greets her with a big smile. With a smile, she says that if her father calls, she always comes running. Touching her shoulder, he thanks her and says he's happy she came. She then asks what's going on, and he explains about the party. Surprised by the news, she stares in disbelief at what she just heard. She then realizes that everything Chang-hoon said was actually true. He then invites her over, saying that Taiju is waiting for her nearby. Serving the children, he warns them to eat slowly because the food is hot. Then the man approaches and introduces the young woman as Seo Yan. With a smile, he greets her, saying it's a pleasure to finally meet her. She then asks if they've met before, recalling a memory. Smiling, she apologizes for being rude and asks them to take care of her. She then promises she will help the company grow the right way. Suddenly, the sound of approaching boots is heard where they are talking. Turning around, he wonders what is happening at that very moment. Arriving with his platoon, an officer introduces himself and informs them of their assignment. Thanking them all for coming, he extends his hand to greet them formally. The officer then says he's afraid there aren't enough rooms for all the soldiers, but he assures him that they brought camping equipment and they shake hands. He then promises that he will risk his life to protect him from any danger. Turning to his men, the officer orders them to drop everything and get ready. Looking at the scene, he realizes he is no longer alone and now has his own forces. Elsewhere, the scene is set on the panoramic view of Guri Castle. Inside, he is accused of various crimes, such as price fixing for medicine. The committee then asks if he acknowledges all the accusations made against him. With a sweaty face, he has no choice but to admit his guilt. Walking down the corridor, he complains about being abandoned and that Kim Tae-ju is alive. Annoyed with the situation, he wonders where it all started to go wrong. In the parking lot, he says there's nothing he can do at the moment. Believing that everything will calm down, he gets in the car and drives away. The car then speeds down a dark road, fleeing into the night. Suddenly, the traffic light turns red, forcing him to stop the car. Looking in the rearview mirror, he sees the image of a motorcycle approaching fast. In an instant, the biker pulls up next to the car and stares at him. Without warning, the biker smashes the car window with a baseball bat. The blow hits his head, and the car's dashboard is stained with blood. Losing control, the car heads toward a cliff and nearly falls off. From the cliff, the biker reports that the mission is complete, and he is returning. In a morgue, Master Lee is seen lying in one of the drawers. Suddenly, he sits up, groaning in pain and feeling the effects of the poison. Just then, a man enters and announces he's brought what the guild leader requested. Showing the item, he says it's a high-quality elixir from the Mirenay pharmacy. Desperate, he yells for the man to hurry up and give him the medicine. Without a second thought, he consumes the elixir, Trying to counteract the poison, the elixir begins to take effect, and a red energy pulses in his chest. Smiling, he says he's feeling better and praises the elixir's quality. But suddenly, the energy expands and he screams in pain again. Feeling his body lock up, he curses Kim Taeju for what's happening to him. Elsewhere, he says he came to Jirasan to hunt a giant moon bear. Walking through the forest, he mentions he also needs to find new poisons for his training. He then realizes he's about to reach 5-star power. Suddenly, he hears a sound and stops to investigate. Approaching a tree, he finds a toxic sap oozing down the trunk. Dipping his finger into the sap, he tastes a little and calls it a good poison. Finding a toad, he identifies it as a blue-bellied shaman toad. He then captures it, saying it's good for research and collection. Soon after, he finds a giant white-necked centipede in front of him. Holding the creature, he says its venom is strong enough to kill an orc. After being bitten, he comments on the fresh taste and the toxin's strength. Suddenly, he whips his head around, sensing some kind of movement in the forest. Hiding, he spots a strange mark among the nearby bushes. Looking closer, he sees a huge creature hiding in the darkness. A giant moon bear reveals itself, and he recognizes it instantly. With a roar, the bear charges forward to attack, displaying all its fury. Seeing the monster, he prepares to fight and test his true strength. He then equips his claws, getting ready for combat against the creature. Without hesitation, he throws his blades at the advancing bear. But the bear defends itself, deflecting the projectiles with a swift swipe of its claws. Surprised by its speed, he simply remarks on how fast the monster is. In an instant, the bear is right in front of him, ready to strike. Using his footwork technique, he dodges the attack and throws his blades at the bear. Hit! The monster turns its back, revealing the weapons embedded in its hide. He then pulls the blades from its back with a quick, powerful motion. Next, he charges forward and lands a poisonous blow on the bear's chest. The monster is thrown backward, breaking several trees with the force of the impact. The forest trees split in half from the violence of the powerful attack. Using another technique, he advances and unleashes a series of strikes on the enemy. But he realizes that none of his attacks are managing to hit the monster. He then notes that he can't defeat the bear with his 4-star power. Seeing no way out, he needs to find a way to escape the situation. Determined to get stronger, he opens his backpack to grab something from inside. Without thinking, he eats the poisonous toad he had captured earlier. He also eats the giant centipede, absorbing all its venom at once. Feeling the toxic energy, he directs it to his venom core. Completing the process, he finally manages to reach the next level of power. With his Venom Spirit Art at 5 stars, he laughs in satisfaction. With a determined look, he declares that from now on, everything will be different. Taking out a secret weapon, he prepares for the next phase of combat. From his hand, he releases 2 blood butterflies, his new venom technique. Sensing the danger, the bear tries to dodge the butterflies flying toward it. Infused with his power, the butterflies move with precision toward the target. Striking the bear's eye, the butterfly deals direct and precise damage. Immediately after, the other butterfly hits the creature's neck with great force. Gravely wounded, the bear stops moving, signaling the end of the battle. Seeing the bear fall, he celebrates achieving both of his goals at once. With a satisfied smile, he says it's time to collect his reward. Approaching the body, he begins to extract the creature's gallbladder. He finally removes the item, which pulses with an intense toxic energy. Analyzing the item, he confirms the toxic energy is as strong as he expected. Holding the gallbladder, he prepares to use the item he just collected. With the hunt's success, he says he can make the elixir and head back.